Welcome back. We're still looking at the last part of this series on the team, the church, the unity, the fellowship that is to be part of God's church. And there's no place for a peck order in the church. The ground at the foot of the cross is 100% level. And listen to this. Jesus speaking to his apostles, Mark chapter 9, verse 33 through 35. They came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he began to question them. What were you discussing on the way? But they kept silent, and again, this is the apostles, those close followers of his. But they kept silent, for on the way they had discussed with one another which of them was the greatest. Sitting down, he called the 12 and said to them, if anyone wants to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. The only means to unity in the church or in a family or any place for that matter is just simply humility and working with others and understanding. We're part of a group working together. We're not individuals. And the more individuals we are, the weaker we are. And boy, could that be described as our nation today. There's no place for a peck order. There's no top and no bottom. We're all needed to work together. And it's so important. This is something the Lord put on my heart the other day. As I was going through this and looking through these verses, every single person on the earth is part of the team, part of the church, or they're the lost, which the church is supposed to be reaching. And it really did something to my heart as I looked at that. I just started looking at people so differently, and we're only here for so long. And we've got to do this. We've got to do this together. And if we're going to make an impact on the world, we've got to do it together. This is just a little bit of warning for traveling speakers, traveling musicians. Oftentimes you'll see this is those that are well known. They may be speakers, maybe traveling around, maybe they might just completely fall apart and do some really stupid things. And what happens? They get on them by themselves. They start traveling. They start getting all the attention. Nobody's there around them, and they have nobody to share with when things are going wrong, and they just try to muscle through it oftentimes. And I can't really tell you what happens to each and every one of them, but when they get by themselves and people start looking up to them as if they're something special, it puts them in a place that's so dangerous and can so easily fall apart. David Wilkerson, you may be familiar with the movie The Cross and the Switchblade, written about some of his ministry years ago. He became really famous after that movie, and everybody wanted him in their church or to speak at their conference. And so he went out, rented this great big bus, and was traveling across the United States. And this group went out, and they rented a stadium, brought in drug dealers, gang members, prostitutes, I mean, you name it, just people off the streets so that he could preach the gospel to them. He got there and he preached on how to have a good marriage. And later he was so mad at himself because this is what he said. He said he was so out of touch with God. He'd gotten so busy. We need each other. We need God. We need him working through the body. We need him because we can't do it alone. Evan Roberts years ago, who was mightily used in the revival in 1905, and there were some things as the revival progressed that he did, and those that have studied the revival have said that, it could have been so much better if the mature pastors, those that were older, would just kind of take him aside and say, hey, there's something wrong here. What was happening We don't know exactly, but maybe it was just that they were so amazed at this revival, how God was working so in such great power through his life, that they just kind of stood back and didn't want to somehow touch what God was doing. And they didn't say anything. The revival was cut short, what could have been much stronger than what it was. How we need each other. We desperately need each other. Listen to this from 1 Corinthians chapter 12. I encourage you to read all of this chapter, but just a few verses here. Verses 14 through 18. For the body is not one member, but many. If the foot says, because I am not a hand, I am not a part of the body, it is not for this reason any the less a part of the body. And if the ear says, because I am not an ear, I am not a part of the body, it is not for this reason any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But now God has placed the members, each one of them, in the body just as he desired. And that's the way we work. We have these different gifts. We've got these different abilities. If we choose not to be part of God's church, part of the body, then it hurts the body. And not only does it hurt the body, but we are not strengthened by being a part of the body. So both are affected. Both us and the rest of the church. I've been so aware of that over the years as I travel and speak, and it's just seeing how God works together through many others. I'm so appreciative of those that I've learned under over the years, those that have prayed for us, some have given to the ministry, and I could just go on, but different gifts and different abilities, and people working on our car, and I mean, I just on and on. It's a whole group working together. A few years ago, I was with this group, and we would split up on Sunday evenings, and we would go out and share the gospel. And then we would come back to church and kind of share the stories of what God had done when we were out sharing the gospel in different places. And I remember this one day, I went to this apartment. I'll never forget this story. There was about, I don't really know how many were there, maybe 8 or more, mostly young adults. And we went over to share the gospel with them. And as I was sharing the gospel, I remember the Spirit of God just coming on the place that day, and God moving in power, and good grief. I remember one young man, he just sat on the curb afterwards, and just holding his head, and he didn't even want to move because of God had so touched their lives. I know there was at least 6 people that prayed to receive Jesus that day, maybe more. We came back to church, and again we would gather back to church and with the different teams and kind of share the stories about what all God did. And I remember as soon as we walked into the building, there was this young lady who had come out of the side room, and she was a seminary student and used to travel with us or go out with us, but hadn't in a while. But she was just weeping. Her eyes were all swollen up, and the tears were running down her face. And this is what she said: "Tell me what God did today. Tell me what God did. God told me to pray for y'all today." I can truly say this: I can't do anything without God working. And it's a team working together. We need each other. And I just encourage you with that. Understand your part. We don't have any place to put each other down. We need each other. Don't give up. If you're hurting, don't pull away. Find somebody to pray for. Find somebody to pray with. Find some people that'll pray with you when you're down. Because I promise you, it's in there. It's in that group that you'll experience all God has for you together. Thank you.